in the previous session, we started talking about the idea that strategy is designed to fulfil the expectations of stakeholders. So in this particular section, we're going to talk a little bit more about what stakeholders actually are and which stakeholders you are actually most concerned about. So, the first thing that we have, as far as stakeholders are concerned, is why exactly do they matter? Now, as I've just said, the idea is that our strategy must keep them happy. The trouble is that there are going to be lots of stakeholders, and we have to work out which are the most important ones. So, kind of stakeholders that you can have. First of all, stakeholders, and this should be something that you've seen before, are those parties that are interested in the decisions made by an organisation. Many students think that stakeholders are the same as shareholders, and that, of course, is not true. Shareholders are interested in the decisions of a company, but there are lots of other people who might be as well. Now, to start with, we're just going to mention various different types of stakeholders, and then we're going to have a model that we can use in the exam to try and divide those stakeholders up. So, stakeholders then, parties who are interested in the decisions of an organisation, they can be internal. Employees may be a very important group of stakeholders. What would make them particularly important would be things like if they are part of a union and therefore they could take industrial action together, and that means they are more likely to perhaps get what they want. So employees may be important. If employees are difficult to replace, that will make them more significant. Managers are also another key group of stakeholders, and the reason that managers are important is because they are often the people who actually make decisions. So I know that in a lot of companies, decisions are made by very, very senior executives sitting on the board of directors. But if we have a company which has got lots of divisions, and we mentioned having lots of divisions in the previous chapter, then it's the managers of each division that actually make most of the decisions. So they will obviously be key stakeholders. That's a very important point for paper P3, and it becomes even more important in one of the other papers that I present, which is P5. So employees and managers are internal stakeholders. External stakeholders, things like shareholders. Now, obviously, in a company, you will have various shareholders. You just need to be slightly careful in the exam as to how important these people might be. Think about what kind of shareholders you might have. I know this will sound very obvious when we're talking about it here, but in the exam, pay attention to what kind of company you've got. Is it a limited company or is it a PLC? Now, obviously, they are both companies, but the difference between them, as you are well aware, is that a limited company is private. So although there are shares and although there are shareholders, the only way to sell the shares is to actually have somebody else who is willing to buy them off you directly. Small companies, family-owned companies, tend to be limited companies, and in those circumstances, the shareholders are often exactly the same as the managers. So please, if you've got a small company, don't start talking about the managers and the shareholders separately, because they're probably the same people. Now, on the other hand, a PLC, a public company, where obviously shares are bought and sold on a stock exchange, that is a very different matter. You might well be a shareholder in a PLC and you are never ever consulted about any decisions whatsoever. If you do not like what is happening, or if you do not have your expectations fulfilled, if the profit isn't as good as you think it should be, all you can do is sell your shares, sell them on to somebody else. So you simply offer them to the stock market, they match you up with somebody else who wants to buy them. You never know who that person is. In a private company, much more compact. Shareholders are much more likely to actually be people who make decisions as well. So just be careful about that in the exam. The final one we've got there, we've got connected stakeholders. People like customers, people like suppliers, and we'll talk more about them in Chapter 4. So they are obviously very interested in what's going on in your organisation. Yeah? Why are they so interested? Well, obviously, customers are interested because they have to pay the prices that you decide to charge. So they have got an interest in your decision. Suppliers are obviously very interested because you are the one who are going to order from them. So, of course, they are interested. So in the exam, it's not just shareholders that we need to think about. It's more than just that.